Hello, everyone.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about leaning into the dynamic, how to use the structures and even the discipline to help your relationship thrive.
But of course, before we do that, if you're enjoying our content, would you please
Mhm.
hit the like button to let us know that we're doing a great job? And of course, hit the subscribe button because you know it makes me smile. And thank you to all of you who have already subscribed. We really appreciate that you enjoy our content and are coming back for more.
And as always, leave a comment. That really does help out the channel. But if you want to support what we're doing, get bonus content, dive deeper into the topic of domestic discipline, the best way to do that is over on Patreon, and a link to our Patreon is down below.
So this idea of leaning in is something that has come up quite a bit to us as we've been doing this podcast. And it's this idea of people are really afraid to really put themselves totally into the relationship, especially the taken in hands. They're worried that they're maybe going to be losing something, or they're going to make themselves a little bit more vulnerable. And one of the things that I would say is that's really what you want in this dynamic is more vulnerability, more reason to rely on your head of household to be able to cultivate the things that you've wanted in your relationship, which is why you decided to do domestic discipline in the first place.
I agree with that. I definitely think that there is a sense of vulnerability in this particular relationship style that is unique. You don't necessarily have to be as vulnerable in other relationships,
It's true.
but when you are in a domestic discipline relationship as a taken in hand, it requires a lot of vulnerability. It requires a level of trust, and it does require a level of dependence on your head of household for things that we are taught that we should not depend on others for. Um, I know that something that has really come up for me recently is this idea of needing to rely on our structure and even our discipline system to be to have more emotional regulation, to thrive in my role as a taken in hand, and just to be able to feel more accomplished. And so that is something that we've really been working on is leaning into our relationship and the structures we've built in order to really reach those goals.
And what that entails is that taken in hands, you have to be willing to go to your head of households and tell them, you know, I really need this more from you. In other words, I maybe need more corrections than I'm getting, or I need more of the maintenance, or, you know, I need you to be more strict with following through with punishments. And then it involves head of households, you taking that information and being willing to follow through with that. Because if you say, yes, I'm going to absolutely give you more maintenance if you need it, give you a correction when you need it. If I feel like you've really crossed the line and you need the punishment, you need to follow through with that. Even as we've talked about before, if it feels like an inconvenience, you need to be able to say, yes, I'm going to follow through, because what she's asking for by coming to you and being vulnerable and saying, hey, I need more of this, or I need this. What she is asking is absolutely that. She's wanting that connection. She's wanting to be put back on track. And if you don't follow through with that, you're really doing you both a disservice in your relationship, and you're causing that friction, or potentially going to cause the friction that you had before you even started a domestic discipline relationship.
And I know that I've been very hesitant to bring this up to Coda. This idea that I need more correction, or I need stricter boundaries, or even more rules. I have been hesitant because to a certain extent, I feel like as a taken in hand that I shouldn't be the one asking those questions.
Oh,
even though it is okay.
yes, absolutely.
Coda is very open to my feedback and my requests in those areas. The difference is in the past, before, like when we were first starting our domestic discipline, my request would come off as demands
Right, right.
And so that's something that you want to be very careful of is you can't make demands of your head of household, but you can go with requests. You can ask for their consideration. And Coda is very open to that communication from me. But it's hard. It's hard to not only admit that I need these things,
Right.
it's hard to be vulnerable, but it's also hard because I'm like, to a certain extent, I want my head of household to just intrinsically know what I need. But that doesn't always happen. And I think that as a head of household, you can try to be more observant. You can
Yeah.
try to kind of see the needs and fulfill them before your taken in hand has to ask. Um, but as a taken in hand, understand that your mileage may vary with that.
That's true. That's very true.
Coda is not necessarily the most naturally observant person.
I She's being kind. I'm not observant really at all. Since I've been a kid, it's just not my thing.
And so I've had to learn that it is okay. And in fact, really the only way that we have productive communication is if I just come out and say what I need.
It's
And
true.
again, it's doing it in a way that makes it to where I'm not demanding, I'm not telling Coda exactly what he's going to do,
Right.
but it's more of like, I need this. Are you willing to consider that? Are you willing? Is that something that you might be able to meet? Is that a need that you can meet? And having that conversation and ultimately leaving the decision up to your head of household.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because, like you just said, you come to me not with a demand that you
Mhm.
need this, but you come saying, "I would really like this. Is this something that you feel like you're willing to commit to?" I mean, you're
Mhm.
really asking for a commitment, I think.
Definitely. And I think that understanding as a head of household, understanding the amount of vulnerability that takes,
Mm,
um, so that you can respond in a way that kind of gives consideration to the fact that your taken in hand is coming to you in a very vulnerable state.
mm.
You don't want to be kind of flippant
Yeah.
about how you
Right.
respond to them. You want to respond in a way that honors the fact that they just did something really hard.
Yes, absolutely. Because to come like that does, like you said, have the vulnerability. But it also maybe gives you that fish out of water type feel. And
Hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong, but you almost have a little bit of fear because you're going, what is he going to say? What is his response going to be?
Yeah, and like also to admit that I need more discipline in order to feel like I can reach my goals, or I need more structure in order to feel like I can have emotional regulation, or I need more rules in order to feel like I am productive. Those are things that go very counter to what we've been taught, how we've been raised, our societal expectations. I know that there's a lot of pressure, especially on women, but probably on men too, that there's a lot of pressure to be very individual, to be, have the ability to have, you know, structure and discipline and schedules and be emotionally regulated and have all of these things all by yourself.
Yes.
And I don't know about the head of household side. I know that as a taken in hand, I really need my head of household to be that guiding light, to be that force of structure, to basically guide my way and say, this is acceptable, this is unacceptable. Um, you know, I want you to have more freedom in this area and I want you to have more structure in this area. And so I need that like outside force in order to thrive.
Yeah, and I would say, you brought up the head of households. I think, we are faced with some of those same kind of things of independence, but it's a little different. It's almost that we don't need anyone telling us anything. but obviously that is not how we have structured relationships as a whole. That's why I hope many of you head of households that you have friends outside of just the relationship that you have with your taken in hand. But this is also where, when you're taken in hand, I think comes to you with this vulnerability to ask for these kind of things. That's a moment for you to realize, wow, she is being dependent on me. Therefore, I need to realize that as I go about to not take advantage of that.
And as a head of household, you do have a responsibility to structure and guide
Yes. Oh,
your taken in
absolutely.
hand.
Yes.
But you also have a responsibility to structure and guide yourself,
Absolutely.
to be kind of that force for yourself. You don't need someone else to come in and structure your day, to offer any type of
Gosh, I hope
accountability.
not.
But you also have a responsibility to understand that your role is not self-serving.
Right, exactly, and that's exactly right. Like by trying to follow through with what the taken in hand is trying to ask for, that helps you to realize, hey, I have a higher responsibility here than just my day in and day out duties. I need to be responsible in trying to help her grow, so that our relationship ultimately grows. That the relationship really is able to have that closeness and that trust, because that's how you build it, by being able to follow through with what she is in a very vulnerable way coming and asking for, I think.
And it's not, so it's, as a taken in hand, I feel I'm very, very dependent on my head of household for that. But that dependence is not a bad thing. That dependence is actually within my role.
Mm,
It's something that really strengthens my role,
yeah.
because it allows me to accept your leadership, accept your guidance, to accept your discipline. Because I am dependent on that and on you, in order to structure my life and feel like I'm reaching my goals and feel like I'm thriving. Um, but as a head of household, you don't have a dependence on me. But I think that you would say that having me as your taken in hand, having a taken in hand in general as a head of household, it is fulfilling to you
Yeah.
and to your role.
Yeah, because I think all head of households will tell you that, and this I hope will uh, help the taken in hands be willing to be more vulnerable. No head of household will tell you that he is going to, when his taken in hand comes and is vulnerable and says that they need something, that they're so excited they're going to take advantage, and they're going to make sure that they're going to bring down the hammer of dictatorship. No, it really is this, wow, she really needs something from me, and you feel this obligation in a good way to say, I'm going to follow through. I'm going to do right by her. If I truly love and care about this person, I'm going to do everything I can to fulfill her wish to be a better person, to be a better wife, to be all of those different things. And so in her vulnerability, wow, I'm going to do everything I can to really take this and be delicate with it, and really do exactly what she's asking to do, which is direct her in the right ways that I know will not only work for her, but our relationship.
Does it give you a sense of accomplishment and even pride to see your taken in hand doing well? To know that
Yeah.
your leadership, that your guidance helped her become actualized in her role?
Yes, and I'll tell you where it really gets me excited. I don't know about the other head of households, but it's when you see those traits, or you see those things that you're trying to help her grow in, happen in a public setting.
Mm.
When you are just exhibiting those things of kindness and respect, or you're showing me, it's just as simple as, we could be at a social gathering, and I will ask her, hey, would you go get me some water? And she'll say, yes, sir. And she'll come and she'll bring me the water and say, here it is. It's just that act right there where it makes me go, wow, okay, that made me feel like she really cares. And I've had people just in simple things like that go, wow, your dynamic is so much different than the dynamic that we have in our relationship. Because even if something as simple as that, we've seen couples dynamics where he's like, hey, would you go get me a glass of water? Well, why can't you do it yourself? Or why? I'm in, and just by the act of you doing that, because of what I've tried to cultivate within you, people just see the difference. But it also makes me feel good that our relationship has grown so close in that way that it shows itself in real life out in the world.
Mm-hmm. And I know that one of the things that one of the mindset shifts that I have made is to view following your direction, serving you, being obedient towards the rules and structures. I see that as a joy.
That's a good thing. That is a very good thing.
It's a mindset shift that I've had to make because there was a point in time where it felt like an obligation. It felt burdensome. It felt like, why is he asking me? Um, but now I really do see it as an act of service, of love, and it brings me a lot of fulfillment and a lot of joy to honor you in that way. And I think leaning into the dynamic and really growing in your roles gives you that connection to where those mindset shifts can happen.
Absolutely. And in that same regard, like when you do something like that I just described, it gives me more motivation to help you accomplish the goals that you want. So when you were talking about earlier, you coming to me and saying, hey, I feel like I need more correction or I need more of this. Well, because of how you've already served me and I've seen the benefit of how it's benefited our relationship, yeah, I'm going to feel the need to say, you know what, I see the benefits for us, not just for myself, but for us and for her. I'm going to do all I can to fulfill that.
It really is a reciprocal relationship
Yeah.
where, yes, it's easy to see how a taken in hand serves and honors and obeys the head of household. Those are very outward expressions and they're very tangible. But the way a head of household really, it is a service to
Hmm.
me to offer discipline.
Hmm.
Especially when I come to you and say, I need more support in this area, even though it's not a rule, it's not a structure. I'm not doing anything against our rules, but I need more correction just because I need more support in this area. You are willing to fulfill that because I am fulfilling my role to honor and serve you.
Absolutely, absolutely. And some people might say, well, what the situation you said earlier, where she goes and gets you a glass of water, would you not do that for her? Well, of course,
Mhm.
I have done that, but the difference is not the fact that she's going and getting me a glass of water. It's what they notice is it's that change of attitude that you're talking
Mhm.
about. It's that attitude that you just described of joy, right?
Mhm.
They see the joy that you get by just going and getting a glass of water for me and bringing it to me. And in the same token, they almost see, I think, oh, they don't know how to describe it, but they see the joy on my face to be able to say, wow, look what I've been able to help accomplish for her because she is more joyful in this situation. She is more uh, just secure in who she is because of where our dynamic is in this situation.
And I think we should do a whole episode on this, but it gives me a sense of purpose to
Mm.
fulfill your needs. And I think that you would say, as a head of household, it gives you a sense of purpose to fulfill your role towards me.
Absolutely. And I feel like by doing that, I am fulfilling your needs. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
again, because you have come to me, and
Mm-hmm.
like many head of households, you're taken in hand came to you with this whole dynamic, which was we talked about before. That's how we got started. Aria came to me with this, and so when you come to me and you're asking for more discipline, you're asking to say, "Hey, I need you to hold me more accountable to something." It does give me that sense of purpose, and I do say, I'm not just doing this for me, but I am fulfilling her needs.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's something that some people don't understand about this dynamic is this is really is fulfilling your need.
Mm-hmm. And I do think that we should do a whole episode where we dive into how living within your role and how having the relationship structure of domestic discipline, how that really does create purpose within yourself, within your role, and within the relationship. I think that that would be a good.
I think that'd be a great
So
episode. So if you guys
look
think
forward
that's
to
a good
that.
idea, put that maybe in the comments and let us know if that's what you like. But yeah, I think we need to remember that this really is a service between the two, and it just looks a little different. But if either party is holding back on that, if you're taken in hand that's just not willing to come to him because you're afraid of what might happen, to come to him with your needs, and ask for things that you feel like you need more of, then you're not serving the relationship well. And head of households, if you are afraid to maybe lean in and say, I just don't want to fulfill, there's too much on my plate, or I just don't feel like I want to do that, then you're doing the same thing. You're not fulfilling the role that you need to have. That's what you all both need to do. And really the big thing in here is to not be afraid. Don't be afraid, I don't think, to follow through with this, because all that does is cripple you. And if you let your fear take over, then you might miss out on something really, really good in your relationship.
And I think it's just a good thing to lean into the dynamic, to not let the fear of being vulnerable prevent you from asking for what you need, and really leaning on the structures that you've built, the structures that work really, really well.
Yeah.
Leaning on to those to say, you know what? These are the goals that we have, and we have the means and ability to accomplish them through these tools that we have. Use the tools. Don't try to do things the hard way just because you are afraid of having those conversations, or maybe becoming dependent on the structures. This is a whole lifestyle change. This is just how
Yeah.
we function now. We don't have to be afraid to be dependent on these structures, because these structures aren't going anywhere. So,
And you used a very good word there that I think is the key word to all of this: vulnerability.
mhm.
And that, yes, is that hard? Yes. And you said this is a mind shift change. This is a lifestyle change. To do that, you have to be willing to just be vulnerable and put yourself out there.
All right, guys, I hope that this conversation gave you something to think about, and I hope you enjoyed this topic. Let us know down below, and we will talk to you next time.
See y'all later.